Michael Lombardi is here. The schedule release is this week, and I'm just going to do my schedule release rant for you, Lombardi. First of all, good to
Okay.
see you. I'm glad you're
Nice to
here.
see you too. Thank you. Yeah,
Um,
appreciate having me. Nice seeing you after you let me rant about the 76ers. I'm over that. I'm
oh,
moving
yeah,
on
on
to the
Tate's
next
pod.
thing.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
we're going to talk 76ers at the tail end. So the
Okay.
schedule release comes out. Everyone gets so excited about it. They blow it out. There's shows. They leak out
Right.
games. I'm in the camp. I just don't care. And I
Right.
actually feel like from an over-under standpoint, this is probably the last day to get numbers at a realistic price. Because once the schedule comes out, everybody goes nuts. Like, oh my God, they have 3 road games on a row. Oh, they have the least rest. And the stuff goes haywire. So I feel like there's 24 hours here for us to really talk about the teams for the schedule stuff. Makes it crazy. But do you like the schedule release? Do you care?
I look at it completely different. I think it's ridiculous to evaluate the overall schedule based on win percentage of last year. I think it's a waste of time because their teams are all different. A, B, the new coaches coming in, that changes. And what happens if you play the Jets and 22 seconds into the first game, the quarterback gets hurt and
Right.
you had that as a hard game and now it's not a hard game, right? So how do you really plan for that? But I think there are some things we can get from it. Number one, I think anytime you play a team that you don't know and you don't prepare for it in the offseason, for example, if you're an AFC East team and you have to play an NFC South team who you haven't played for 4 years, and you've gone through a bunch of coaching changes and all that, you have to prepare for that team in the offseason and do a deep dive on it. And what complicates that is if they have a new coaching staff. So Seattle new coaching staff they'll play somebody that they haven't known. And if you don't prepare for that through training camp, through the OTA days, all that, you can get caught off guard. I think you look for that. Second, you have to look at who they play before a short week. So we know Buffalo's playing Miami on the first Amazon game. So who does Buffalo open up with? If they open up with a Pittsburgh or a physical team, that short week hurts you no matter whether it's early in the season or not
Yeah.
because your pad level is not going to be perfect. Your fundamentals aren't great. You didn't take training camp seriously. So I think there's some of that. And then cold weather teams in the heat in September. Buffalo plays Miami, but the sun will be down. It'll be cooler. It's going to be humid as shit, but at least that gives them an advantage as opposed to playing them at 1 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon in Miami where it's 90 degrees with 100% humidity. So weather and scheduling, that's what I look at. In terms of the whole thing, I think it's bogus.
Well, conversely, on the weather thing, the warm weather teams late in the season, if like Miami's playing at Buffalo in week 18, it's like, all right, that's not nothing. But I think it's probably the big picture of the schedule might be worth 1 win or 1 loss either way, depending on what you thought heading into the year. I still feel like there's an incredible amount of value. Now, since the over-unders came out, some of them got bumped up by a win here or win there. We've had the draft. We've had free agency. I separated all I have 4 categories for you,
Okay.
and I'm just going to read you the 4 categories. These are red flag numbers that there's 6 teams where I was like, man, why is the over under there? I don't get it. So I'm going to read you the 6 teams that I wrote down, and you tell me if you had any of the 6. Cleveland over 8.5. They were 11-6 last year. Denver's 5.5. They were 8-9 last year. Detroit is 10.5. They were 12-5 last year. The Chargers are 8.5. They were 5-12 last year. Pittsburgh 7.5. They were 10-7 last year, and they win 10 games every year, no matter who the hell's in the team. And Seattle, with a new coach, the over/under is 7.5. They were 9-8 last year. So Cleveland, Denver, Detroit, Chargers, Pittsburgh, Seattle. Out of those 6, which one jumped out at you?
Seattle at 7.5 is a no-brainer. Okay, and let me tell you why. So Seattle has been 20-13 at home over the last 2 seasons. So they really haven't had a home field advantage. And why is that? Because their defense has sucked. Okay, they can't stop the run. They gave up 400 yards to Pittsburgh with Mason Rudolph under center, 30 points to Pittsburgh in week 17. Their defense, Pete couldn't get it fixed. You know, Clint, I think it was Clint Hurdle. I forget his name. He's a D-line coach. He's now in Philly. He wasn't the answer at the coordinator. So he's had problems with that defense. McDonald's going to fix it. I think Seattle underachieved defensively. I think when you look at them, they have three corners that can cover. They're good at safety. Their front got better with Murphy. They have Daquan Jones from last year at Denver. They're going to be a much improved team. And he's a really good coach. Remember now, this guy took Kyle Van Noy and he took Clowney off the street basically and turned it into 18 and a half sacks. Okay.
Right.
Now they would say they were still great players. I'm going to say that he helped them.
Well, and some D-back injuries too that they always seem to survive somehow. And you're always like, oh man, they're done. They'll grab somebody off the waiver wire. All of a sudden, that guy's starting.
Well, the most amazing thing about Baltimore last year is they had the lead. They were plus 42 in first half point differential, and the opponents only were ranked last in the league in passing attempts against them. And it makes no sense at all. And the reason they did that is because people were really worried about blitzing, facing the throwing it because he had so many blitzes from different combinations and create turnovers. I think he's going to be a huge help. They get their two tackles back who were hurt most of last year, Cross and Lucas. That's going to help. They have two really good running backs. This is a good team. They won 9 games with the worst defense in football, right? And they should have beaten Seattle, and they're going to get a home field. So to go over 7.5, I like that. I love
Wait, can you
Pittsburgh
hold
overs.
on one thing on Seattle? Division, fair to say, not as good as last year. Arizona will be a little better. Rams are going to be about the same, but the Rams don't have Aaron Donald. I refuse to believe that's not going to matter. And the Niners feel like, maybe they can scratch one more year out of this, but the cap's about to get them in a real way.
Well, the other thing about the Rams is you have to always worry whether Stafford can stay healthy. And so, when you have the Rams on your schedule, if he's on the team, like when he got hurt in Dallas the next week when they started Brett Rippon, and they were easy games for you. Look, I think Arizona, can they be better? I mean, look, Kyler Murray wasn't good last year. And I know he's coming off the knee, but he hasn't been good for 2 years. He's been under 7 yards per attempt. He has this mythology about him, but once you rush him the right way, he can't. So I think Seattle's good. I think Pittsburgh, you can't ignore Pittsburgh. They've improved defensively. They got a linebacker in the draft, Peyton Wilson, who can play. They've been looking to replace Ryan Shazier since he got hurt, right? They have him and Queen. They signed those guys. They've improved their offensive line. They've got good receivers. Look, I don't love Russell Wilson, but I think eight wins isn't a hard thing for Mike Tomlin to achieve. I think Jim Harbaugh makes Chargers instantly better.
On the Steelers, quick, I don't know if Russell Wilson is even a C- at this point, but their quarterbacks last year were lower than a C-. So if he can even be competent, that's fine.
Arthur Smith gets this bad rap for being a head coach. And I'm sure Super Bowl winning GM Terry Fontenot thinks that it was all Arthur Smith's fault, right? But Arthur Smith can run the ball. He's a really good offensive coordinator. And they're going to run the ball. Like Russell, he's going to hand it off. And they've got weapons and Pickens. They'll be better. They'll be better coached too.
But by the way, I don't love Arthur Smith, but was it his fault that Desmond Ridder threw like 13 of the worst passes of the entire season last year? I can't totally blame him on that.
I mean, his name wasn't on the document that was released saying that they weren't interested in Lamar Jackson. I mean, like, who wrote that? Did that document just come out of Flowery Branch from the Super Bowl winning general manager and Kaiser Sose McKay? I mean, like, who did that come from? Like, they all hide behind somebody. Arthur Smith gets blamed for everything. I mean, they've passed up two great defensive linemen in Jalen Carter and Murphy,
right,
to draft a running back and a quarterback. And they had a running back in Algier who averaged 5 yards a carry. But that's a horse of another color. I think the other thing when you're looking at these over-under totals is you really, like when Jim Schwartz went to Cleveland last year, we said Cleveland was going to be better because of Schwartz. And I think you got to give coaching in the NFL a lot of props because the coaches can really enhance the win total. I think the Chargers are going to be tougher. They're going to win more close games. Herbert's going to be throwing less and more effective. I don't want to hear this bullshit. Well, they don't have receivers. Okay, well, Mahomes didn't have receivers either. He doesn't have receivers now. Once Rashee Rice gets suspended, who's his receivers? Hollywood Brown? The worthy kid? Kadarius Toney, who doesn't even play? So I think, to me, just on mental and physical, the Chargers will be like the Knicks. They're going to be hard to play.
Well, Vegas agrees with you because they went 5-12 last year, and Vegas is basically saying if you want the over, they're going to have to go 9-8 for you to win that. And they've lost some dudes, So this is because nobody believes in the new coach theory more than me, especially when you're replacing a bad coach. There's no better bet. Brandon Staley was terrible. So if you're putting a really competent person replacing Brandon Staley with somebody who can change your culture in 1 year, we saw it with Peyton in Denver last year. Where did Denver finish? They were
they won 7.
They won 8. Denver went 8-9 last year, and he hated his quarterback to the point that he basically shut him down
and gave up 70 points in one game.
Right.
I mean, think about it. And bounced back from that.
I just worry about with the Chargers lack of explosiveness on offense. I know what he's going to do. I know he's going to just try to ground and pound, low scoring games and all that. But the conference, the AFC is just better than the NFC this year. If you just list like all the AFC teams versus the NFC teams, it's tilted. I would say 2/3 of the teams I like are in the AFC this year.
I think there's no question. And look, I'm not saying the Chargers are going to win the Super Bowl. They're going to win close games. I think Detroit. We talk about them. They paid all their guys, which was great. I mean, Goff's the second highest paid quarterback. It's amazing, right?
What a story! What were the odds of that? Would you have said Ben Simmons versus Jared Goff in 2021? One of these guys will get another max deal. That would have been a tough battle. I
probably would go with Goff because at least Goff will throw the ball. Ben won't shoot. But he looked nice in that picture you sent me at whatever he was going.
I know. Every once in a while, I torture Lombardi, and somebody sent me the Ben Simmons at the Met Gala, and I was like, when do I want to ruin Lombardi's day? I even looked at the time of the day. I'm like, oh, this is right before dinner. This will really, really get him. If Ben Simmons wearing a fancy outfit.
Oh, God, it's just so bad. I think Detroit's going to be better, but Detroit's going to be a target. I was talking to a coach the other day in the league, and he has a really good relationship with Sean McVay. And they were having a conversation after the Rams won the Super Bowl. And this guy said to Sean, he said, Sean, this will be the hardest year of your life. And McVay was like, what are you talking about? He said, like, what? No. He said, no, it's going to be the hardest year because you're going to be the hunted one.
You got the bullseye.
And you got the bullseye. And everybody's studying your shit. Everybody's looking at your stuff. Everybody's breaking you down. I have a sense that's Detroit too. Now, the one thing about Goff, why he was successful, is it goes back to the belief of a team. If the quarterback is protected like Goff is with that good offensive line, he can look really good. He looked good for the Rams when he was protected. He fell apart when the Rams fell apart, when, he didn't have the protection. So, I think Detroit should win 11. I'm not in love with that as much. The one I am in love with is Denver at 5.5.
They went 12-5 last year. So if you're going to lose that bet, they're going to be 2 losses worse. But they're going to be like the trendy Super Bowl pick too. What you said about Goff made me think of something. When people do this with quarterbacks, because this is a Mac Jones defense. Well, if he had a really good offensive line and he had time, and it's like, what quarterback couldn't you say that about?
Everybody, yeah.
Like literally, it's like the Bronny James thing right now, where like, if you put Bronny with great teammates, he's really going to thrive. If he's with a good team, he'll be better. It's like, well, as opposed to the other players, you couldn't say that about.
Don't get me started on that one. That one just blows my mind.
But good offensive line. Is there a quarterback who's like, if his offensive line had been worse, maybe he could have taken off?
Well, how about Caleb Williams? How many? I mean, unless the defense counts the 5 Mississippi, how's Caleb Williams? He doesn't have a left tackle. The right tackle is a second-year player who wasn't good. They weren't good up front last year. Yeah. So I don't care how many skill guys you have. If the quarterbacks Detroit was smart. They protected Goff. If you don't protect Goff, Goff's going to fall apart. You know that. We've seen it. He's not. I don't want to say he's not tough, but he's not resiliently tough.
You can rattle him. You can rattle him. Speed him up. But this is basically what the Rams did with Stafford, right? They were like, we actually want to get Stafford through a 5-month season. So he invested in the offensive line and just trying to be able to block for him so he can make it.
Right. So, I mean, look, I think Detroit's better defensively. There's no question. But I think Green Bay's good too. Yeah. And I think they'll be a target. Now, was Chicago better? Yeah, I think Chicago is better. Is Minnesota better? I don't know. But I'm iffy on that one. The one I like a lot is Denver, because I just listen to what Sean Payton said after his when they asked him his initial reaction to Bo Nix, and he was glowing. But forget what he said. His face was glowing. Like, and so what happens so often when you're in the league is when you go out to rookie camp, what you want to see is a symmetrical version of your rookie draft class. You want to see the first round pick look really good, better than anybody, and you want to see the seventh round pick being the worst player, right? And you want to see that symmetry. You don't want to go out there and say, "Oh, fuck, the fourth rounder is better than the first rounder." What do we do here, right? We've all had that happen to us. So, he came into that press conference and, yep, what I thought of Bo Nix, what I believed in Bo Nix before the start of the season, before the draft, I see it. It's there. I'm good. And he won 8 games or last year. Now, he didn't beat the Raiders in those 8 wins. Think about that. He had 8 wins and lost both games to the Raiders. He lost the opener by a point, and he lost another one to them. So, and I don't think the Raiders are going to be very good. So there you go. I think 5.5. I think that's a gimme. I can't imagine Sean not winning more games than that. I just can't.
And it's minus 150 on FanDuel right now. But they were 8-9 last year with a really weird quarterback situation. The only reason I can think that the over-under would be that low is that just they're paying so much money to Wilson, that dead cap hit. It's almost like a historic level of a cap dent that maybe they're factoring that in. But I just don't see Sean Payton going 5-12, especially
not with this team. Plus, he's added to his defense. They gave up 70 points. Once they fixed the defense last year, they actually played pretty good. I mean, they go into Buffalo and beat Buffalo, right? I mean, they've won games. He knows how to manage a game. Don't underestimate that, how to play the game. He may not have the best team, but he knows how to play the best on a certain day.
So, and then the last one I had was, Cleveland, because Cleveland was 11-6 last year and the over is 8.5, which is just spooky because they had a pretty weird quarterback situation last year that allegedly is resolved.
So now we got a new system, right? New quarterbacks, coach, new whole offensive system. I don't trust the quarterback. I like their defense, but they had no draft picks. They've done things in free agency. I think they can get to 9. I think Cincy's going to be much better. I think Pittsburgh's better. So I think the division is going to make it harder there. I would say if I get an order, I would go Seattle, Pittsburgh, Denver, Chargers, Detroit, Cleveland.
Because the other thing with Cleveland is Chubb. Oh, he's in summer. Oh, he looked good today. But do you come back from that knee injury in 1 year? Probably not. And then Watson.
No. Plus, they lose Bill Callahan, the line coach.
Yeah.
Don't think that doesn't affect the team, right? I mean, it would be like the Eagles losing their line coach. That guy makes that thing go really that well. And so, they let him go to go work with his son, which I get that completely. But I think to me that's a challenge. I think that order, I'm probably the only guy high on. And when we talked about Seattle, we didn't talk about Sam Howell or Geno Smith. Look, they have weapons on that team. And Jigba in the slot, Metcalf, Lockett, they're good.
Right.
So, and Geno 2 years ago was good, but last year got the shit beat out of him.
I think Seattle is my favorite of those 6. Just I don't understand why the number is the number teams, because I have other ones that I really like, but I think Seattle, I like McDonald. And Pete Carroll had an unbelievable career, but that team, there was some sloppy weirdness with them the last couple of years. It wasn't much different than the Pats, but I think the Pats, the defense and the infrastructure of what they were doing, they were still in the games. They just had one of the worst offense skill position, and a lot of that was self-inflicted from Belichick and some of the people he drafted. But they couldn't score points, and then their kicker couldn't make kicks.
But like what you're talking about with New England, I mean, when you have a winning program, you lose staff guys. And I think Pete's staff wasn't at the highest level at the end, neither was Bill's. And I think that affects you. I think that's hard to overcome. And I think McDonald will give them a breath of fresh air. And I think it'll give up. Plus, if you're betting the over here, you're saying that home field matters. And I've been in that stadium, and it should be hard to run the ball in Seattle.
Right.
Because it's so hard to hear.
I'm going to give you another category. And this is based off something you did on your podcast recently. You asked Femi. Femi's married now. Still, has he finished The Sopranos? What's the deal with Femi?
He's done. He's got it through. Yeah, he's gone through it. I
don't feel like his heart was totally in it. I feel like he did it just for you. I have 2 teams for you. The question you asked was, hey, we're going to have 5 terrible teams every year. This is how the league works. Everybody loves their team, and in May and June, but we know how it's going to go. There's going to be 5 shady teams. There's going to be a team that goes 2-15. There'll be a team that goes 4-13. Team that's go 3. So who are the 5 worst teams? The 2 teams that I feel the best about sucking are obviously Carolina and our guy Tepper. They went 2-15 last year. The over-under for them is 5.5. I can't imagine what on earth would make anybody go, up Carolina 6+ wins. I'm in. Here's my money. And then Vegas under 6.5. That's plus 118. There's been a little Vegas buzz. I don't understand it. Like the damage of those Gruden drafts, which a lot of people have written about, and it is one of then you throw in Ruggs, which, I guess Gruden gets some blame on that because you're rolling the dice on somebody that's got some character issues, and then he has the worst character thing possible happen. But when you miss that many drafts and you just have this chasm for years, and then this year you go into the draft and it's like, all right, we're going to fix it. We have a high pick. Let's take another tight end. So now they've spent their second round pick a year ago and their first round pick this year on 2 tight ends. And then the press conference after, they're like, no, it's good. They can play together. And it's like, you might as well have Jahlil Okafor and Joel Embiid and back-to-back picks. Like,
we've seen this.
Yeah, you can play together, but you have holes all over your team. You're the last team that should have 2 tight ends. And combined with the Antonio Pierce, who the players are like, we love this guy. I have no idea if he's a good coach. To me, that they have a little stink to them. And then Carolina is obvious. But are those the 2 best bets to you to have a bad season, or is there anyone else you'd pick?
I put the Giants in there too. I mean, why are the Giants going to be good?
Well, Danny Dimes coming off ACL surgery,
and then Drew Lock's backing him up.
You don't like that?
I didn't. I know they were trying to draft
no running back.
I know that. I completely buy that they were trying to draft Alt. I completely buy it. They got me. They have me hook, line, and sinker on that. Yeah, right. Look, why are they good? Tell me that their offensive line still isn't very good. They draft a receiver who's really good. Can they get him the ball? Danny Dimes has averaged over 7 yards per attempt in his career. Can they protect him? And how good are they on defense? Because they signed Brian Burns. He was on one of the worst teams in the league last year. Like, he's not making them any better. So I don't know. The Giants, to me,
what's their identity? Because basically they're going to say, we have an awesome pass rush. We're trying to build our team like it's the 07 Giants again. Cool. Well, you have one skill position receiver guy who's a rookie. You have bottom 7, bottom 8 quarterback situation in the league, maybe worse. Your offensive line is probably bottom 7, bottom 8. I just don't see it. The only thing in your favor is that the conference isn't very good. But yeah, so if it was Vegas, Carolina, and the Giants, that feels like a pretty good threesome.
Washington passed the Giants to me. They signed a lot of guys. They've improved their core base of their team. Quinn will give them a 1-year bump. They'll get some energy. Anybody can replace Rivera, who hasn't said a word in 8 years on the sideline. Anybody can replace that, right? And then, Bieniemy destroyed the offensive team. He could have been arrested for malpractice, but he did this. If I was Sam Howell's dad, I would have gone and punched him the way he had my kid getting killed out there. So
one of the things I love about you is your love for Sam Howell, that he just was in the wrong system this whole time. He did get the absolute shit kicked out of him. And
he kept coming back.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a moment for somebody at some point. But yeah, they fit the new coach there. I had Washington in a later category because they had a ton of picks. Dan Quinn. So the Giants to me are clearly the fourth team in that division.
Let's go to Vegas. So when I've seen this happen before when the players don't like the coach and they clearly didn't like McDaniels, or they weren't buying into the program. And then the new guy comes in, the substitute teacher comes in, and you get that lift. But that lift doesn't last into the next season. It doesn't last into the next year. It has to have its own identity. And then you come out of the draft with a tight end who you have to now say we're a 12 team, right? What are we doing? We where's our strength? We have no offensive line. Now, I know they've been signing guys. They signed Pete and they signed a bunch of guys after the draft, but I agree. The Gruden Mayock got a pass on all these horrendous drafts. They got a pass on them. And then Josh comes in and doubles down on bad drafts by trading for an older receiver and giving up a first round pick, which is violates all beliefs that I have in terms of building teams. So it hasn't been like they don't have a farm system.
Yeah.
They're not talented without a farm system. And then let's talk about it. Gardner Minshew, he's a middle reliever. 3 innings, 4 innings, maybe. And once he gets to the 5th inning, you're coming out. That's it. We got to get to the bullpen.
Is he Kelly Oubre, or is Kelly Oubre better than Minshew?
I think Kelly Oubre is better than him.
Yeah.
Because Kelly Oubre can have some magical nights. I don't know if Gardner can have a magical night. I've always said Gardner was a poor man's Baker Mayfield. Like, I wanted Gardner on my team as a backup, and then middle reliever 4 games, put him out there. But once people understand that Gardner can't step up in the pocket, they have him. So when you have 2 guards, the Raiders currently have 3 guys on their roster that can only play center. Parnham is a center. The James kid's a center, right?
And 2 tight ends.
And then they drafted the Oregon center. So now they're going to put 2 guys at guard that really aren't good guards. They're better centers.
Right.
Like, I don't know. Maybe the quarterback's just going to go to one center one time. He's going to go to the other guard, like make him snap the ball. So they're not good up front. They're not good in the middle of the pocket. And let's be clear here. Like, I know Adams has got this great. He's not the same player he once was either.
He wasn't open in the same ways. I always judge the best receivers by when the TV cuts to where the ball's going, nobody is near anybody. Like Devontae Parker was the opposite of this. Every time they cut to Parker, he was basically carrying 2 guys on his back because he couldn't even get open by an inch. And it felt like Adams, the degree of difficulty of his catches, and I know he's a physical receiver and he's good and he's good in space, but all that, it just never felt like he was that open. And you mentioned Minshew, like, was there a better situation for him than last year? He had an unbelievable offensive coach. They could block for him. He's playing in a goofy division.
In a dome.
In a dome. And now he's like going to Vegas. He's got this weird team with 2 tight ends and they can't block. And I don't know. That should have been a Justin Fields team.
With a coach but they can't hire. They couldn't go. Legacy, they hired him as the offensive coordinator.
Yeah. All right.
So that eliminated Fields. So, Carolina, look, Carolina has to be better because they'll be professionally, no matter how bad Canales is or how good he is, he's got to be better. I said this last year. I did a radio show in Carolina in August promoting football done right. And I said, that is a disaster waiting to happen. That was as poorly coached team as I've ever seen. And the guy said, you just must have a hard on for Carolina. I said, no, I'm just like, this is what you see. It's got to be an uptick. Now, does that uptick mean 4? Does that mean 5? I don't know. The South isn't very good, even though that Super Bowl franchise Falcons is probably going to win 14 games. But I don't know, who's good in that division.
Frank Reich did a Monty Williams on the Panthers.
Oh.
He was like, I don't know if I want to coach again. They're like, what about if we offered you this? And he's like, all right, I guess I'll do it. And just an all-time mail-in by him. So Vegas, Carolina, and the Giants, before we take a break, is there one other team you would throw if that's let's create a bottom 4. Vegas, Carolina, Giants. Is there a 4th team you feel like could linger in that vicinity?
Well, usually that 4th team is a team that, or a team that gets a quarterback injured that isn't very good. I think New England's going to be better, but certainly if they have to play May all year, where are they? There's a change in coaches there. Again, now you're bringing in a coach who once we've got a basketball. The whole tenor's changed, right? And everybody's going to celebrate that. But I've lived this before, right? I've lived it. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Could they get to 5 wins? Look, if they have a better field goal kicker, they would have had 7 wins last year, as bad as they were. So I think they would be another team you have to think about putting in here. I think their team is better, though. Their defense, if they're healthy, their defense was better. But again, he's not in the building to coach the defense.
Right. All right, Lombardi. My 5 favorite overs, and Arizona is one of them, and I would love for you to talk me out of it because everybody's on Arizona and it seems too obvious. And Arizona over 6.5 is one. Juice on that is already -160. Green Bay over 9.5 is my second favorite. or not my side. This isn't in order. This is alphabetical. Green Bay over 9.5. I really like that team. I thought they could have won in San Francisco. I like how they built the team. I have no idea why they would go backwards. I know your buddy Big Daddy is probably coming up with a million reasons why they're going to go 8-9, but I'm a believer. Houston at over 9.5. The only thing that scares me is it's super obvious. I didn't like that the line jumped by a win when they made the Diggs trade because I'm not positive how impactful Diggs is going to be. But he moved the line from 8.5 to 9.5, and there's juice on that. And then the two unders, these are my favorites. Dallas under 10.5, which I think you agree with. I just don't. We'll talk about them. And then your guy, Fontenot, Atlanta, 9.5 is their over-under. They were 7-10 last year. So the case would be that Kirk Cousins is going to be worth 3 wins. Fine. They threw away their first-round pick. They had the 8th pick in the draft. They used it on a backup. The guy's not going to play. Their defense wasn't good last year. They didn't do anything about that. I don't understand why they're a 10-win team. So let's start with them. What makes people think Atlanta is going to go 10-7? Cousins coming off a torn Achilles, by the way, which with him and Rodgers, it feels like people have just been skimping past that part. Like, oh yeah, they'll be fine at the torn Achilles. They'll just heal it. Like, I don't know. Quarterbacks, their legs, guys diving around their legs, guys falling around their legs. It's not like basketball where you can just come back. So Atlanta under for me. Where do you have it?
Oh, I have them under, not because of, anything other than the fact that whenever a team, and I wrote about this in Football Done Right, whenever a team thinks they're one player away, they never are. Right? The Herschel Walker trade, we're one player away. The Green Bay Packers, let's trade for John Hadle. We're one player away. You're never one player away. And so Atlanta last year was one of the worst. They've been one of the worst pass rushing teams in the last 3 seasons. They play in a dome. They don't get very many people to come to the dome, but they play in there, and it can get loud there. And so you would think they would have the ability to create turnovers with crowd noise, but they can't because they can't rush. They were 29th in creating turnovers last year, right? And if you think they have an elite defense, Baker Mayfield, a game in Atlanta, is down by 4. He takes the team down the field and scores a touchdown late in the season when the playoffs are still imbalanced. Okay, so I think they've completely, and I don't trust Super Bowl winning GM Fontenot to evaluate the team correctly, clearly. So you're not getting me. Plus, can Cousins move? How good is Atlanta's offensive line? Oh, if we get Pitts to play better. Well, Pitts hasn't played better yet. Pitts is a player who, as you know, in the NBA, if there's not a creative advantage by moving him to position, he gets no advantage. So when he's out there, people treat him like a wide receiver. Even though he's a big man, he's a receiver. He's not a tight end. So you're not worried about a weak side run game with him. So you're limited in what you can do.
What NBA player is Pitts?
Well, it would be, what you want like when Scottie Pippen and Jordan, they could interchange all their positions. Like 1 minute he's this, 1 minute he's that. Pitts isn't elite at anything yet. He hasn't been an elite pass catcher. He kind of is a galloper. He's, he'll make a play to make the highlights. Try to think of an NBA player who's like him. He's probably like Tobias Harris. That's what he's like.
No, Tobias, poor Tobias.
He's paid really well, but you're not getting a return on the dollar.
Well, especially fantasy, where he was getting drafted for multiple years with Kelsey. He's getting the same numbers.
But because people don't understand Kelsey. Kelsey's an elite wide receiver. He's not a tight end. He's an elite wide receiver. Yeah. He's always been a wide receiver. Credit Kelsey for not taking wide receiver money.
Right.
He could have easily demanded.
But Kelsey was also a 3rd round pick.
Right, exactly.
And
Kittle's
Kyle
a
Pitts went
pick.
5th in the draft. So the way they built their team is just completely illogical to me. And you saw it this year with the draft, right? What happened with the draft this year versus other years, right? Where it was just everybody loaded up on offensive line, quarterbacks, and then the couple of the awesome receivers. And you saw guys like Bowers, who I think would have been like the 3rd or 4th or 5th pick a couple years ago. But now people are like, the tight end, I don't know if that's as impactful as like getting a fucking left tackle that we have for the next 10 years, right? So Atlanta takes Bijan Robinson, I think 8th. They already had a receiver. They take Drake London 8th. he's probably, I would say, one of the least talented top 10 receiver picks we've had in the last. He's certainly not like a game changer. And then Pitts, you'd watch entire Falcons games. Like, is he out there? It's like the Tobias Harris thing. I was like, wait, Pitts just caught a 4-yard pass. I didn't realize he was playing. It's like when Tobias hits a 3. So yikes.
Yeah, I mean, like, to me, it's like you wasted all these picks. You had Jalen Carter staring you in the face. You turn it down. You had Murphy or Latu staring you in the face. You turn it down. Like, did they pay attention that the Kansas City Chiefs won a Super Bowl with their defense, not with their offense? Did they pay attention to that?
They did not.
You know, and so I don't see it. Let me jump up to your Arizona one. Like, I don't trust Murray. I think Drew Petzing did a really good job running the ball last year with
You didn't like what you saw from them down the stretch last year? Because they got a little frisky down the stretch.
I thought the tight end was really good. Trey
McBride.
McBride. I thought he was really good. But I think, to me, defensively, they're going to have a hard time taking a jump. And I don't trust Murray. I don't trust him. I think people understand how to game plan against him. If you look at his numbers the last 3 years, they have gone steadily down. Now, you only need the 7 to cash it. But, you know, I don't
wish
trust
it was
him.
1 win lower. That's why. So this is what I needed from you, because if it was 5.5, I'd be all in. The 6.5 makes me nervous, plus a shitload of juice. This is like one of the hot picks in May, which
I mean, I would circle that and say, you know, and look, when has everybody been on it when the juice is again, where you have to go with the juice? When does that ever work out?
The minus 150. How about Houston? Does Houston scare you at all? Because everything is lining up for them as the hot, sexy. Watch out for them.
Yeah,
a little like the Lions last year, by the way, and the Lions actually paid off.
They're going to be the 101. I don't understand how that line moved from 8.5 to 9.5.
Because of Diggs. Because nobody watches football. Nobody actually watched Diggs in the second half of the year.
Or how about, you know, how long do we have to listen to Odell Beckham? How great he's going to be for Miami?
Right.
Like, are you kidding me? I mean, did anybody watch Odell Beckham? I mean, that marveled Brock Osweiler is the heist. That was one of the great robberies of all time.
No, come on, nothing's going to stop Osweiler.
No, but Omar didn't steal that much money in Baltimore than what Beckham stole. I mean, Beckham stole way more than Omar and Marlowe combined. So,
but Juju Smith-Schuster, don't count him out of the combo. It costs them more to cut him than keep him. Juju, it's one of the rare, terrible, we can't even like get out of it contracts. So Houston rushes the passer, very good coach, special quarterback. And even if Diggs is their third receiver, that's a still really nice third receiver to have. They're going to be able to run the ball. What do I not like about that team?
Their line is better than Chicago's line. They have a legitimate left tackle in Tunsil. They've got to get Titus Howard to play better at right. I mean, they got Shaq Mason. They've got the guard. I mean, they can play better. And look, I think I don't have any love for Will Levis. I don't think Tennessee is going to be with Will Levis under center. I don't think that's going to be. I think Indy will be better. I don't know what to make of Jacksonville because Lawrence hasn't taken, and I'm a huge Lawrence fan, so I either blew this, but if you're really honest with yourself, Lawrence doesn't throw the ball down the field. He's Daniel Jones. He's never averaged over 7.2 yards per attempt down the field.
Well, what's scary about it is how about all the capital they've spent on receivers for him? Free agent and draft picks. They just did it again.
And they don't sign any linemen. Like, they think their line's good and they think it's all about their receivers. I mean, they got Ingram as a franchise player. They paid Kirk a ton of money, right? They drafted this kid from LSU, Murphy, you know, like, seriously. And then they turn around. I mean, I know they traded for Ridley. They let him go. But to me, it just seems like I don't trust them. I really don't. I don't like, so Jacksonville, and are they good enough on defense? You know, now I think the guy they hired who was in Atlanta last year, Ryan Nielsen, I think he'll be a better coach than Caldwell. There's no question. So there's going to be that upgrade there. You're going to get that.
Well, I know you loved as a football diehard old school guy. I know you loved the owner's son showing up with a neck brace to try to continue his wrestling angle from the AEW pay-per-view a couple days earlier. I know for the old school guys, they love that stuff.
I mean, how can they? I mean, you talk about a franchise that's unbelievably can't win.
You're just done. When you're doing stuff like that, when you're supposed to be a serious professional football franchise, I can't take you seriously. I just can't.
So bad. All right, let's talk Green Bay. Green Bay,
Yeah.
I like.
Mm,
Okay, here's
me
why I like
too.
Green Bay because I think Green Bay is good. I don't love LaFleur, but I think he did a good job with Love in the second half of the season. The
Me
first half of the
too.
year, he's protecting them. But I think the addition of the new defensive coordinator, Halfley, is going to make a huge difference. I think that was a good hire. Halfley was the head coach of Boston College. He'd been around the league a bunch. He was in Cleveland with Kyle when Kyle was there. He's been with Siano at Tampa. He's got a really good defensive package. Was at Ohio State, was when they were good on defense. So like I think they were going to be better defensively. They have talent on defense. They underachieved defensively. That front should have been way better than it was. And there were times where that front was really good, but it was so inconsistent. I think their offensive line's going to be better. Jacobs, look, I think I loved Aaron Jones, and I don't know what's the disconnect between Aaron Jones and the team because I thought Aaron Jones was the difference maker down the stretch. I really do. But Jacobs can do a lot of things Aaron Jones can do out of the backfield, catch the ball. If he's in shape, which he wasn't last year at all, then it's a huge get. 10, I think they can get to 10. I think that's going to be a nail biter going down the stretch.
Really good team building by them. Where I think
Yeah.
I saw they have the cheapest wide receiver crew in the league, and they
Room.
have good receivers. They have a
They have great receivers.
quarterback who is still on a good deal. Just in general, like when you can have a really good offense but not spend a shitload of money on that, and the money can go other places, the success rate of that is usually like 90-95% if you could just stay healthy.
Well, that's what the Chiefs are doing. All the Chiefs
Yeah.
are doing is we're going to pay Mahomes. We have to pay Kelsey. We're going to beg and borrow on offense. We're going to draft linemen, and then we're going to put all the money on we're going to draft the defense. And so now
Well,
we're really good on defense. See, let's go back to Atlanta. One of the principles of Walsh was for Walsh to win, when this is when we had 14 games, to be a 500 team, he used to say you needed to be able to to have a good quarterback to get 7 wins, but you needed a pass rusher in the fourth quarter to win games for you.
yeah.
You had to have somebody to rush the passer in that 2-minute drive to put the game away. If you don't have that, like you don't, and Baltimore and Green Bay has rushers. I don't know if Arizona does. I think Houston definitely does.
But we liked
Even though
Arizona's coach, though, right? I thought Gannon did a pretty good job in the second
he
half of
was
the year. I
surprising.
was surprising.
It was surprising considering that he was so vanilla in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
He was really
I thought they
vanilla.
played hard for him. I thought that
No, they
mattered.
did play hard.
We got to talk. Haven't talked Dallas under 10.5 yet because that's the one I'm probably the most passionate about for the unders. If that team is named any other team in the league, I think that over under is 8.5. But because of Jerry and the Cowboys and they're on TV and Dak, I don't think people understand just how horrific that Dak contract has been for them. Did you see that stat about how he's been, I think, 151 million the last maybe 4 years, just counting on their cap? It's by far the biggest cap hit any contract because the way they did it, they didn't give themselves any flexibility. They didn't push any money forward. And now it's just all hitting them this year. On top of that, wasn't sure how good they were last year. And they bring McCarthy back when everyone thought he was going to get fired. I don't see any scenario where this team is better this year than last year. I don't see it.
Well, and I'll add this. I thought they overachieved last year. I didn't think they were great last year. That when they went on the road, everybody says they couldn't win a road game. They couldn't beat a good team, right? Well, why do you think that is? You just think because McCarthy can't coach? That's not the case. They got Terrence Steele playing right tackle. They got ball first and goal with the 6 against the Eagles, and he can't block Hassan Reddick, and Prescott gets sacked, and the next thing you know, they lose that game. Like they go to Miami, they can't protect him in Miami, and they lose that game. I mean, and I don't think they're as good. Now, I think Zimmer's a better coach than Quinn defensively. I think there's no question Zimmer will make them tougher, but do they have enough talent? I mean, look, one thing about Diggs, he'll jump on any route. We know that. And Parsons is great, but who else is helping Parsons? Right? See, here's the problem with Dallas. Every draft pick they made this year, from in the first to the third round, was an indication of their problems with their team. And so when that happens, when the draft has to fill the hole on the team coming up, you can't do it. The draft is for next year's team. It's not for this year's team. it's hard to get those guys to play. Though they might start, but they can't play at the level you got to get them to play at. They're not ready to play at that level. So, they draft these three guys, like Maisie Smith, they drafted last year at the 26th pick. He gave them like 3 games, had like 4 tackles. I mean, he was horrible. Right. So now you need the left tackle to come through, or you're going to move Tyler Smith over there. Now you need the center, who's a good player. BB, he played guard. Are you going to put him at center? Then you got drafted a kid from, I forget, a small school to play defensive end. I mean, it's going to be a hard game for them. I just don't see it. I think Washington will beat them. I think Philly can beat them. And I think they're vulnerable to anybody. I mean, they got to go to Cleveland opening game. I think Cleveland can beat them in the opener.
Yeah, you look at the Cowboys season last year when everybody got excited about that midway through the year. They beat the hell out of the Giants. They beat the hell out of the Panthers. Congratulations. They beat the hell out of Washington. Congratulations. Oh, we're on a 3-game winning streak. They beat the Seahawks in that really fun night game where it's like, oh, Dak, MVP? Seahawks didn't make the playoffs, by the way. Then they beat the hell out of the Eagles. And that was the one where we said, oh, Dallas is serious. We got it. But now looking back at the second half of the season with the Eagles, that win looks a lot less impressive. And then they never really captured the same momentum, but then they got absolutely destroyed in the playoffs. And we leave the playoffs going, they're going to fire McCarthy, they're going to hire Belichick. Nope, they didn't do that. Well, are they going to trade Dak? No, they're going to keep him. Are they going to give him a new contract? No, they're not going to. Like, they have Ezekiel Elliott as their starting running back right now.
And look, Dak. We know this about the NFC. There hasn't been a repeat champion in the last 10 years. It hasn't been.
East, yeah.
The Cowboys, the East. The Cowboys have won 5. The Eagles have won 3. Washington's won 2. The Giants haven't won any. But just say Prescott gets hurt here. Now we're talking about them being one of those teams who could be competing in the top 10 pick because they're not that good. Cooper Rush ain't leading them anywhere. And I know they're going to give Trey Lance a ton of reps this summer, but look, they still have to get Lamb under contract. They got to get Parsons under contract. There's things going on in that building that haven't been resolved yet. And if they keep paying Dak like the Giants paid Daniel Jones, then all of a sudden the resentment's going to come through, right? And I don't blame Dak for all the stuff, all the ills, but at some point you got to make plays. It's like Atlanta. We have forgotten that Kirk Cousins sucks in big games. Like ever since he did that quarterback series, everybody's kind of forgotten that he's not good in good games.
I haven't forgotten. And I haven't forgotten that Dak never has come through either in any situation. They're the same guy. Dallas under 10.5 is my favorite. I'm throwing 2 other quick ones at you. These are ones I would call trying not to. We're not going to get through everything because we're running out of time, but trying not to get seduced is this next category. Kansas City over under 11.5. The under is 11.5 is even money right now. This Rashee Rice thing is a big deal. And Valdez Scantling, who turned into the boogeyman for Chiefs fans, but actually made a couple plays in the playoffs. I actually still think he was open a lot. You could at least throw him the ball. He'd been in some games. I wonder if their receiver room has passed the point of competency, because like even that Xavier Worthy, that rookie they took, listen, I went down this road a lot of times during the Belichick Brady era. You can't count on rookie receivers. What if he sucks? It's a coin flip. So there's a world where their receivers might just suck and
might be as bad as they were last year. But look, they have to play the same. Like I said this today on my show. Like the Chiefs early in the year are going to be a team that they don't know who they are yet. Because if they think they're going to throw it around the lot and win that way, no chance. They have to run Pacheco. They're going to have to win with their defense. Do they have a replacement for Snead?
But think about what you just said. They have to run Pacheco. Like that's your road to 12 wins. Come on.
Well, nobody in America is going to tell me who the left tackle is. I mean, they got the kid they drafted. I can't say his name in the second round. You think he's going to be ready to start at left tackle? They got the Morris kid who they drafted in the second round a year ago. Maybe they'll do it. Maybe we'll see it this summer. You paid Chris Jones now. Chris Jones is a great player, but are you getting 17 games and 60 minutes out of him?
You paid Kelsey too, and you paid Mahomes.
You paid Kelsey, and then you said that Kelsey looked like he's 26. Every time I see Kelsey, he's on a plane or at a concert. Like, I don't know where, Like, I love Kelsey. I think Kelsey is an incredible person to take less money for being an elite receiver. But at 36, he's not the same guy he was.
Well, and the other thing
before.
is he basically admitted during the playoffs, like, yeah, I had to take it easy during the regular season to try to save myself for, which I agree with. You're trying to win a Super Bowl, it's the right move. But if we're just talking regular season and my only really good offensive receiving target is pacing himself to get ready for January, like
Yeah.
that makes me nervous.
Right. So,
So
like, what people don't understand is a number one receiver has to draw coverage. You have to double him on every single play. Like, you don't double Drake London. Like, you just put somebody out there, right? And so it's like in the NBA. If you don't double the elite player or trap the elite player, the guy's
right.
going to score. Kyrie Irving only had 9 points last night. That should never happen. He's too good, right? So, but we mistaken all these other receivers as elite. They're not. Like Hollywood Brown. Nobody is. He might make a play here or there, but nobody's scared of him. Nobody's scared of Sky Moore. Nobody's scared of anybody. And so they don't have it, and they have no left tackle. The line's a little older, and I think what we saw last year when they played against good fronts, they had a problem.
It could be one of those, it's like mid-October and then so what's wrong with the Chiefs article and somehow they'll end up 10-7, they'll make the playoffs, nobody will want to play them. Buffalo is the other one. I'm zagging on this one. Normally I am always under on Buffalo and I think they're overrated and they missed their window. Now it's like their over-under is 10.5. They were 11-6 last year. I don't think the Diggs thing is a big deal. And they replaced them with a bunch like Curtis Samuel and Valdez Scantling, and they drafted somebody. And I think they're going to be able to piece it together. And everybody seems to forget that James Cook became one of the 4 best running backs in the league during the second half last year. They still have Allen. They still have a good home field advantage. They'll probably clean up some of the coaching issues they had. And I think people are ready to pour dirt on these guys now. They still have Josh Allen. Like, to me, if he's healthy, that's 10 wins. I'm tired of betting against that. So the fact that it's 10.5, it's like, could they get to 11-6? Why not?
Here's the thing I think we also forget about Buffalo is that, and somebody should tell Ryan Poles this in Chicago. Buffalo tried to be an 11 team, one back, one receive, 3 receivers, 1 tight end, and they play in Buffalo, and they got the shit kicked out of them by Cincinnati up front. And they couldn't live that way. So they drafted Kincaid, and now with Dawson Knox, they're a 12 team. And Cook came on last year and they ran the ball because Kincaid's like a receiver, but he can block the weak side. So you have a run game with Kincaid in that game. And so now you can. And so the effect of Diggs doesn't matter. That's why he was always pissed off because he wasn't featured anymore.
Right.
And he was declining. And so because of where they play, I don't disagree with you on that. I worry about them on defense because they're so little and they have but look, Daquan Jones, when he's healthy, he makes them a really good team.
So the bet I like more than that, and this on FanDuel, it might be different somewhere else, but Buffalo to win the AFC East is plus 160, and Miami is plus 185, and the Jets are plus 210. I have no idea why one person would think Miami is going to be better next year than this upcoming season than last year. I think they missed their window. And then the Jets, did they change their coach? And I didn't get the memo.
I don't know.
It's the same coach, right? It's still Robert Saleh. I'm just checking.
Only in Jet world could it come out that they were going to they were going to replace Hackett but not fire him. Did you see that story?
Yeah.
So they were going to replace him but not fire him, and then what did? They did nothing. So they admit they have a problem, but they couldn't solve the problem because they can't fire Hackett because that would upset Aaron. Like, how does that ever work?
I texted this to you. The Jets are like, win now, Aaron Rodgers. This is our moment. We're all in. We're trying to win a Super Bowl. If you're all in, hire Mike Vrabel.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing? Mike Vrabel's available.
Call Belichick up.
Or Belichick, whatever. Well, Belichick would never work for the Jets. But Mike Vrabel, it's like, are you better off with Robert Saleh and Nate Hackett? Or are you better off with Mike Vrabel, who has already proven that he could coach against all of these dudes and would completely change your culture?
And you really think Rodgers would have been upset if he had brought Vrabel in? Of course he would have been. Like, he would have understood that. Like, why are we so scared to make Rodgers upset? Like, Rodgers is a smart football guy. Whatever you think of him and all the other stuff, he understands football. Like, he would have known. Like, he's got to see through Saleh like I see through him. The guy's a cartoon character.
I can't believe he's coming back. What more do you have to just how he handled the Zach Wilson thing alone over the course of the year and took no accountability for it? I just don't think he's a competent head coach, and I feel pretty confident
He's
in my
proven it.
football.
He's proven you correctly. He's
Yeah.
proven you correct. I mean, look, when he got that job, he was interviewing all those jobs, and nobody wanted him. And Joe Douglas hired him, and he doesn't get that job. He's still in San Francisco.
What's that saying that you love about when somebody's trying to tell you who they are? That's
Believe
usually
him.
who they
It's
are,
Bill
or believe
Parcells.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Bill Parcells. When a player shows you who he is, believe
I feel like Salah showed me who he is as a head coach at this point. I believe him.
him.
I believe you're
I
an under
believe it.
500
So is
coach.
Nathaniel Hackett.
Right.
So is Nathaniel Hackett. And so why would I put my money in that? Like, why would I put like, that's my view on Arizona. I believe what I see in Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
I don't believe he can carry the team. So I would have not given him the money. I would have said, but Michael Bidwell they're not doing that. I think that's going to catch up to him.